and addresses challenges in the 21st century marriage. She specializes and works with individuals and couples with the aim of enhancing their well being and relationships. She holds an Islamic framework while integrating Western psychology principles in her approach to counseling. And I think that's important because a lot of the times we don't realize our lifestyles are a whole lot different than it was in the days of our ancestors. She's passionate about working with people and couples as she believes that the quality of our lives is determined by the quality of our relationships. So let's speak to Sister Sumaya Hoosain today about the myth of a perfect relationship. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Nafisa, and to all your amazing listeners. Really awesome to be on your show today. Alhamdulillah.
Once again, it's always a pleasure having you on, always, leaving food for thought with us to go back home with. And I think you get our team also going. It gets us thinking on many different levels. And, it's so nice to be able to chat to you because I was just speaking earlier about the importance of relationships in our lives. And I think a lot of people have lost the essence of that. To be able to understand that the most important thing in our lives for us and for our betterment and for our well-being is our relationships.
Absolutely. Definitely. I totally agree with you there.
Let's talk about this myth of a perfect relationship. I think a lot of people, and I think it stems, of course, from watching all these series and things like that. I'm going to say it just the way it is. Somebody's going to shoot me in the foot at the end of the day. But anyway, my question is, people watch these things and think, oh my word, this is the kind of relationship I'd like to have. It's so perfect. We're so in unison and things are happening and it's so romantic. But then, and I think people have these preconceived ideas before they get married. And then once they get married, boom, the reality hits them after the honeymoon.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in a totally different scenario than what you were before.
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head there, Sister Nafisa. So, in today's marriage, we ask from one person, firstly, what is the path an entire village is to provide, right? So we ask for belonging, we ask for predictability, we ask for novelty, we want surprise, and the list is sort of endless. And, I'm not sure if any of our listeners know that, these are sometimes unrealistic expectations. And the research tells us that unrealistic expectations is the reason for 50% of our divorces. And that's a pretty large percentage. It actually means half of our divorces are actually because of unrealistic expectations. Right? So much of this is we buy into the myths from various types of programming in our culture, Sister Nafisa. And it comes from how we educated, what our parents want for us, popular movies or TV series, like you said, and so much more. We were raised in our very early years with, the knight in shining armor and the princess and the damsel in distress. And I cannot tell you how powerful those fantasies actually play out, because I see it play out real time with many of the couples that I work with. So the myth of the perfect partner often causes us to have unrealistic expectations of others and often ourselves too, and which can lead us to a great deal of emotional pain in and out of our relationships. And so when we have unrealistic expectations in marriage or any place for that matter, we set ourselves up for more disappointment because it's unlikely that our spouse will ever be able to meet all of our needs. And this disappointment can fester and transform into other defeating emotions and choices. So persistent disappointment can lead to stress, frustration, anxiety, sadness, despair, anger, and eventually a decision to give up on the marriage. So the choice to end things after persistent disappointment is often seen as the only answer because of our unrealistic expectations. And so that is actually very sad. But if on the other hand, we actually discuss and negotiate and talk about these things earlier in the relationship, or even perhaps do a bit of premarital counseling, which I strongly advocate, especially for our young couples that are getting married. So we've got a very high rate of young couples getting divorced, and so we need to adopt or advocate for prevention. And one of the forms of preventing divorce is actually to do premarital counseling. Research also tells us that couples that have had premarital counseling, there's an 80% less chance of them getting divorced, because they're not coming into this with rose-tinted glasses and just falling in love. They actually have an opportunity to speak about the real relationship.
I agree with you there, because as you were saying, a lot of the times there's this misconception and preconceptions of what a marriage should be, and then when going into it, it's something so new for them, and not realizing that there's two different personalities actually having to sync, and it's having to find that sync, and of course that compromise that's important. And I think a lot of the times, there's this actually, I don't know if we should call it a culture shock or what is it, but they find themselves in a situation where, they ask themselves the question, what on earth is going on, because they need to learn how to sync. And I so agree with you with this premarital counseling, because I think it gives them a better idea and an approach to what to expect when going into this relationship.
Absolutely. So it gives the couple an opportunity to discuss challenges that particular couple would have, unique set of challenges. I believe that each person getting married, has a unique scenario with unique families of origin, and how all those subtle nuances are going to play out in the life of the couple. Whether they're going to be living with the in-laws initially, or what plans they have, in terms of maybe parenting, for example, relationship roles, talk about expectations of who's going to clean the home, etc. And what role are we going to play in this this dynamic of being married and living together. And so often, with these expectations, and invite our listeners to just reflect on which of these statements, you are tempted to believe. And if you agree with these statements, how might they set you up for being disappointed later on? And how does believing or living out these statements keep you from fully loving or honoring yourself and your partner? I just want to read a few statements out,
Yeah, sure.
For example, my partner will meet all my needs for companionship, right? Number 2, time will resolve our problems. Number 3, if I have to ask, is it not as meaningful? We should live happily ever after with no major problems, right? Less romance means we have less love for each other. Our relationship will remain the same, right? Number 8, my partner's interest in sex will be the same as mine, right?
Right.
Number 9, our relationship will be better when we have a baby. So these are just some of the ideas and thoughts that I want our listeners to reflect on. And perhaps they could even see themselves thinking along this line, or maybe if you were already married, you could reflect on, perhaps I thought that in the past, but it's not the same. It doesn't play out the same, right? But these are some of the ideas or the beliefs that could often play out in our fantasy of marriage and what is expected of the marriage. And these are some of the things that could, the ideas that could lead us to a great deal of disappointment when these needs aren't met.
That is so true. I agree with you there. The thing is, as you were saying, I think it's about also being able to understand each other, because each one of us is different, and to be able to find that relationship in such a way where you could meet halfway and compromise, because there's a lot of compromise involved in a marriage as such. It's not my way or your way.
Yes. The other very big myth, Sister Nafisa, is because we have this notion of, this whole idea of falling in love.
Mm.
And early in the relationship or in the marriage, if it was that kind of chemistry initially, we actually fall prey to the myth that love should be easy, and it is easy initially, right? So I think, another big interject that causes pain for many people in the relationship is the myth that it is easy. And in my personal and professional opinion, this couldn't be more untrue. We need to understand that love is, specifically romantic love, I truly believe is challenging, it's hard, and it's hard for a reason. So whenever you get two people or more together, conflict is inevitable at some point. And if you throw those two people into a relationship where they live together, share the same bed, have sleepless nights, juggle work, commute, kids, in-laws, sex, money, and all the other triggering stuff of life, love is going to inevitably get tough sometimes, right? And we need to understand that that's okay and that's actually normal, right? But that's not what the collective social message would have us believe. So inevitably, when things get tough and rough and challenging, many of us get scared and assume that the relationship we're in is with the wrong person, right? So the right person would love me. That's the idea, right? And so in no way am I implying that emotional, verbal, or physical abuse is okay in a relationship, right? It's definitely not. And that's not what I talk about with the relationship being challenging, right? So one of the ideas I've really taken away from the extensive work of famed psychotherapist and love researcher, Dr. John Gottman and his wife Julie Gottman, they suggest that there's three stages of love, and romantic love being only one of them. So romantic love is that stage in a relationship when we're falling in love, so to speak, literally flooded with a cocktail of hormones that make us practically addicted to one another. And that is basically a stage of the relationship where we projecting our fantasies and idealizations all over the other person and imagining them to be the one. Right? So romantic love is a stage of the relationship that implies effortlessness. It's so easy in the beginning that love will be easy once the prince or princess get together and the curtains close and the lights dim, that type of thing. But romantic love is actually only the first stage of the relationship. And in reality, actually, the love story is just getting started. So in the next stage, they call the second stage, the individuation stage, right? So the cocktail of hormones fade and the projections upon our beloved loosen and fall. And so we begin to see our partners more clearly and they start to see us more clearly. And the power struggles and the conflicts emerge as two individuals try to figure out how to make room for two very different people in the relationship, right? So I want to highlight that these are relationship researchers that spend most of their lives watching, observing couples and documenting what they've seen over something like 40 years. And what I want to highlight is the normalization of the different stages of the relationship, right? So this stage can last for months, they say, years or decades, depending on the context of the individuals in the relationship. And it's often a time many people might call it quits in the relationship. But if two people can weather the challenges of the individuation stage, they may enter the third, less media glorified stage, which is the mature love stage. And in the mature love stage, two people have already resolved how to make space for both people in the relationship. And there's a greater sense of safety, connection, and acceptance of one another, to basically make space for the other person in the marriage. And so now it's not to say that conflict or challenges won't exist once they arrive at the mature love stage, nor will ease be absent from the individuation stage. Ease and conflict exist across all these stages, and it's a critical reminder that love is not always easy, And love can actually be very, very difficult and hard and challenging.
Mm.
And so love is not always easy, and it's something we work for and we work through in our relationship. And I think I've said this in the past, that marriage is something we work up to every day. It's a verb. It's something we do every day. The grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where we're watering the grass.
That's so true. And it's having to work at what you have. Because I think a lot in a lot of instances, people think that maybe, somebody else's relationship is better than theirs. But I think it's having to reflect and see where you are and then where you could head to and make things better. Because there's a lot of relationships that are on rocky roads at the moment. And I think it's all because, firstly, I think there's a lot of, with this COVID thing as well, there's been, a lot of strain, firstly. And secondly, the couples have not had enough time for or with each other. And that also creates an issue in the relationship as such.
Absolutely, and I think for a very long time, Sister, many of us have just been in survival mode in terms of earning and working and taking the kids to school. And during this, the COVID pandemic, it's really given us an opportunity to be with ourselves and to be in our relationship. Mm. And so I think we're observing things now and even connecting more deeply to ourselves that perhaps we never did in the past. So this can be quite challenging on an individual level, just being with yourself. Mm. Because I think most people, they just rush off to work in the morning, spend a full day at work, come home. Many women have, the second shift that they've got to pull. They're exhausted when they get to bed. And, this roller coaster continues through our lives.
Yes.
So this has really been a time of reflection and a time of really weighing, and observing what we actually have in our lives.
I like the way you say that, weighing in on it, because a lot of the times what is happening is couples are living past each other. Because there's this, like you're saying, this added stresses that have come in and challenges, and they're working on fixing that as opposed to just paying also a little bit of more attention to their relationships as such, because they're not understanding that this particular aspect is deteriorating those relationships.
Yes. And so, it's almost like your garden that you're not nurturing or you're not watering and you're not pulling out the weeds and keeping an eye on it. So ever so, you don't even realize that slowly over the years, the lack of attention to this garden, which is your relationship, is deteriorating. And before you know it, it's overgrown with weeds. The flowers is no longer growing. It hasn't been watered. It hasn't been nurtured. And this is the exact same thing, in our relationships. If we are not really paying attention to it, if we are not communicating and engaging with this entity, because it's basically, it's a spiritual space. It's a space between two people that we cannot see, but we are actually experiencing. We're experiencing emotions and so many other experiences that come out from the space between the couple. But because we do not have an awareness, because we do not have a consciousness around it,
yes,
we're not even aware how these things are subtly playing out moment by moment in our lives.
That is so true. But what message would you like to leave us with for this year? We're hoping to tap into you again next year. You've definitely been, I think, shedding a lot of valuable light as far as relationships are concerned. I think people have gone back and reflected on where they are and where they would like to head to for 2021.
Yeah, so I think it's very important for our listeners to know that unrealistic expectations in marriage are, involved in nearly half of all divorces. And if you're struggling with an unhappy marriage, it's time to really evaluate your expectations and to invite your spouse to do the same. It's only by getting realistic about what you expect from each other that you'll be able to address the disappointment before they start feeling each other.
That is so true. But Jazakallah for joining us and giving us your time this year on our show
Such a pleasure.
to be able to entice people to actually reflect on their relationships and see how they could better it, as opposed to having to just give up on it. And I think, as we were saying earlier, it's about adopting that balance, firstly, and secondly, getting to just understand each other's spaces and being able to sync together, and create a better quality for our relationships. I mean, a lot of us have jobs and things like that, but as you said, it's having to spend a little bit of that quality time to be able to keep that relationship kindling and going.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much. We wish you nothing but the best for the holidays going forward. And of course, staying safe during the second wave.
Inshallah.
And loads of appreciation from myself and the team for taking the time out. We've definitely, I think, learned a lot of valuable lessons from the types of advice that you've given us. And we really do appreciate that. So thank you so much. And you take care of yourself, and we'll chat soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Literally about our relationships and how we can better it, and the myths that go around it of what a perfect relationships really are. But as we know, relationships are not perfect. There's always those hurdles that we're going to encounter, and it's how we overcome it to be able to create a better space for ourselves. We're going to go for a quick break. Stay with us. We're going to be joining Chloe Bayless after this break.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam